Just so everyone knows, the cameras aren't on, but I'm gonna record the audio and the presentation so I can post it online.
He works for us. So nice. Oh, he does. What's the story? We could have all come up.
Oh, yeah.
I'll sit for it. Get Fred behavior. Fred behaves like, oh, he's more fun when he doesn't. He is. When you don't listen, I can hear that, but we actually do.
I'll see you all right. I was afraid of sitting in.
Oh.
Okay, well, it's 7, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm glad that some people came. It was so dark, so early, kind of cold and drizzly, so I appreciate you coming out to talk about the library once again. And this time we'll focus more on the building's exterior and the facade, which will be really exciting. The plan for tonight is I'm just gonna quickly review kind of how we got here and the public meetings we've already offered. And then Chris Huston is gonna jump up and talk a little bit about the site plan and like big picture stuff. And then Michael Menadeo from Weeman Lampier will talk more about specifics of the facade and exterior. And then we will have lots of time for questions and looking at the materials. And it's a small group, so I think we can be pretty informal and probably take questions as we go and stuff. So. Okay, so this is number 7, I think, in our series of public presentations and meetings and series of focus groups. We started 2 years ago this month with a series of meetings planning for the library's future. So engaging the community in a conversation about what we want our library to look like. What does this new building need to have to enable us to really grow and move forward? A few months after that, the project team evaluated different scopes of work. So staying on site versus moving off site and building new. And the community was able to attend meetings to learn about the pros and cons and prices of those, or cost estimates for those options, and weigh in on what they wanted to see. Once the scope was selected, we had the design competition in the summer of 2023. That was really fun. 3 wonderful conceptual designs that the community got to weigh in on and provide feedback for. We moved forward with Weeman Lampier and Reart Company and they've been working on schematic design, let's see, all last spring, and we presented those schematic designs and a funding plan in April of 2024. And then shortly thereafter, we had another special meeting right before the bond vote, still continuing to get feedback and refine the schematic designs during that process. And then most recently in September, we presented new updated design boards that have more detail and more refinement as we've gone forward. And so that brings us to tonight, where we can share some of the fun outside stuff, as I'll say in my layman's terms.
Thanks, Dana. Chris Huston, we're a company. I've seen most of you on several occasions, either for other projects or for this one. As Dana mentioned, we really want this opportunity to be very informal, any questions and so on. So we're really gonna get through this presentation pretty quickly and kind of open it up and even allow you to kind of come up and look and touch and sort of feel the materials that are being proposed. What we're really excited about, frankly, is that from the very outset of the project, in working with Dana and the IPL 100 team and all of the stakeholders, one of the most desirable aspects programmatically was a 2-story building for a whole host of reasons. And what we're excited about is that design has continued to be present and really very similar, I think, from what we've seen really from all the way back in August of 23, on the design competition sort of, timing. So, a number of reasons for the two-story concept, is largely allowing the children's program to be right at the most immediate and, first program that you're gonna see on the main level. We're gonna call it the main level, and then kind of the upper level, the second floor. And so that's, that was an opportunity. Dana, in terms of operating the library, really desired to have these two floors, essentially having staff be able to really functionally manage two floors versus three or four or whatnot. So that was really one of the primary design drivers. Additionally, in working with, meeting with the Division for Historic Preservation, they were very excited that our building was very respectful of the original 1924 Carnegie style library that has, as you know, as you can see on the image on the right here, you know, it really has kind of a low overall stature. And so we thought it was most respectful to not sort of dominate that three-dimensionally. And you'll see as Michael reviews the design, that we sort of wrap around the building in a very respectful way as we engage with the, you know, with the existing library. The entry points are really the same that you've seen before. The three primary entry points, which are located with those red arrows, so those haven't really changed. But I will say, maybe go to the next slide, Dana. A lot of what we have done since the early stages is taken the feedback we've received, incorporated them, whether it was from public meetings or from meeting with the Division for Historic Preservation or follow-up meetings with the IPL 100 team. But some of those things, some of you may have remembered our original design had the entry on Main Street pulled way out, and Michael will have some renderings of that. We listened to the feedback we had, both from the division and others, who really wanted it to be behind the primary facade of the existing building. So it's one of those design refinements that we feel really actually improved the design, at the same time still kept the integrity of the original concept. Another big driver that has remained in the project that we're really excited about is the upper outdoor programming space you see in the forefront of this image. Now, many of you or some of you in the past have expressed concerns about water management, snow, those things. Absolutely great feedback, great comments. We're incorporating that thinking into how we manage water with internal drains on flat roofs. They're done on many, probably the vast majority of our projects are flat roofs. And furthermore, in considering sort of at this image right here, and considering the possibility of a sloping roof, intersecting with the existing library would be a pretty significant challenge technically in managing water, you know, the angles and shapes. So we felt very strongly that this was the simplest way to be respectful of the existing library. So with that, we can start running through some of the fun images.
Yeah. So this, as you can see, is the Main Street elevation. And it hasn't changed that much either since the very beginning. The idea was to really simply contrast the two buildings. One, the existing building being something that's, you know, very traditional, very much of an internal type of building. There's nothing that you can actually see when you're going by the building. So in contrast, we decided to make the new entrance very transparent and inviting and lots of glass. So that was very intentional to have this juxtaposition between the old and the new. In terms of the material palette on this elevation, most of it, as you can see, is glazing, and the gray areas that forms the roof and the left side, the walls are meant to be skinned in this terracotta or ceramic tile. And this is the particular one right here that we're looking at is something that is stone-like, so we thought this could be, complementary to the existing building. But not mimicking it, so it's a slightly darker, tone than what's on the marble on the existing building. And then on the main soffit at the very top is wood that is skinned on the other underside of this, a warm wood tone. And that picks up what the actual structure inside the building is. All of the ceilings are gonna be made out of wood, so it's the idea of creating this kind of warm, glowing lantern, if you will, at nighttime. The bottom of each or of this floor and the ceiling of that is all made out of this CLT system. So you'll be seeing wood on the ceilings and on the soffit, and actually we have also wood on some of the walls. So for example, on the second floor, there'll be some wood along this wall as well as in the vestibule here.
Michael, what is CLT?
Cross laminated timber, it's a new type of construction that is essentially like a big piece of plywood where wood goes in two directions and becomes very, very sturdy. So this is actually gonna be the system for floor and the roof.
Yeah, and it's a carbon sequestration technique that avoids materials like steel and concrete that are very high in carbon, so we're really excited to be incorporating this system in the building.
So
Yes.
it's,
How does that weather?
Sorry?
How does it weather over time? Does it
Well,
turn gray or is it
This will be just an interior material.
go into?
Yeah, and then the exterior soffit is gonna be more akin to something like this, which is a thermally treated wood, not this particular groove, but this kind of color. And underneath the soffit, of course, it's not gonna get that much weather.
but over time, even though it's, because it's outside, will it need to be varnished or something?
No, this has a 40-year warranty.
40 years.
Yeah. So it's a thermally treated wood, so if anything, it might have if it's exposed to the sun, it'll have a little maybe silver patina over time, but it takes a long time for that to happen because of the way it's treated.
And Michael, before we move, Dana, before we move off this image, just want to point out one of the other areas that we listened to feedback that we received, is you may have remembered perhaps that there was a set of stairs on the left-hand side of this image leading directly into the main entry. The design revision was intended for universal accessibility so that whether able-bodied or with any kind of accessibility challenge, you take the same route to get from point to point. So from Main Street sidewalk into the main entry is along that same path, which we're really excited about the way that, and I think Division for Historic Preservation is also really excited about the celebration of the stairs, the traditional stairs that are going to be ultimately 100% redone. But to allow that to be almost like a public celebrating, seating area that then leads you to the main entrance, which Michael described there as the lantern. But these are the kinds of, design refinements that we've been working on over the last several months.
So the front door is permanently closed, right?
We won't use it. It'll probably be pinned shut. Oh, wait, no, it won't be pinned shut. It'll be an emergency egress.
Emergency.
Right.
Emergency egress,
So there's, is that,
another
is
refinement.
that a glass wall?
It's a, glass railing at the very
So
top,
you'd be able to come out the door and some way
both
off
sides.
of that platform?
Yeah, both ways you go
Both
there.
ways down.
Yes.
I have a question then about emergency egress. This is for all able-bodied people who come down from the second floor and first. Because when I think of families and children and, strollers and wagons, they would still be able to come out the side entrance. Is that right?
Yes, and I just point out, jumping into this, there are actually numerous egress points throughout the building at different levels and so on. So this is a, Michael and his team are looking at all of the code required means of egress. Here we certainly have that one, we have this one, from the main lobby, there are several, so that's the intent, is that you're gonna have numerous points of egress.
Yeah, the three entrances, the three primary entrances are all at grade, all universally accessible. So this will be in addition to those.
And so the sidewalk going over to in the front of the building, going over to the right, that's flattened now. So you.
Well, both of these will have
There will be
a slight slope,
right.
yeah. It's meant to be a sort of a symmetrical design as much as we can make it.
With really that landing being our starting point at the bottom of the stairs, and then as Michael says, it goes up in both directions. At no more than a 1 in 20 slope, so that's not a ramp, that's a sloped walk, so you're not required to have a handrail on a sloped walk.
Looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gentle. It's low.
So Chris, am I right in thinking that right now, if I were to go up those stairs,
Mhm.
about halfway up, there'd be a big landing, about 6 feet or so.
Mhm.
And that we're kind of getting rid of that landing and kind
Yeah.
of compressing
Yeah,
the stairs and moving them back.
right, correct,
So that we have more space in the front.
exactly.
So that if you go out to the front of the library now and you see where the stairs start.
At
That's
the
not,
sidewalk.
that's not where they're gonna start. They're gonna
Right.
start another 6 feet in,
Right.
and then there won't be a landing. That make sense?
And each step is about an 18-inch high bench seat, so we call that stadium seating down the middle.
Or
And then
every other step, right?
Every step in the middle will be 18 inches, but along the side, there's a traditional conventional stairs here that you walk up and then you walk to the middle of that. So it's all meant to be, like we're trying to show here, seating all the way up.
And those are probably wood or.
They are wood, yeah.
And I've seen that done on the interiors of buildings.
Yes,
Yeah.
To have those
Right,
kinds of
yeah.
stairs,
right,
2 kinds of stairs
yes,
in one area.
that's right, yeah.
And seating for the parades down.
You got it.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
And also, this is something that both Jen Murray and also the Division for Historical Preservation were very supportive of something that's reversible. So they wanted to see these stairs remain essentially accessible and to essentially allow that wooden seating to be removed in the future. Should it want to be the sort of traditional wide stairs that it is today, we can do that. Shall we?
Should I scroll
keep
on?
going?
So they're gonna be wide enough that you could put in extra little stairs to turn it back into a regular step, because 18
Right.
inches is not your normal.
No, right. In
Right.
fact, Ross, the
Right.
stairs would go all the way across.
Yeah,
Right, they'd be formed underneath and then we build the wooden seats on top.
Also, the wooden seats would be 18, but not the.
yes, that's right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, yep,
Right.
just another view,
Another view as you would.
sort of gentle, a little seat wall. We're certainly still working on final landscaping plans and things of that nature. Keep going.
And then this, of course, is the main entry from the backside, from the south side, you can see the back of the existing library at the very top. And then there's our roof terrace where there's some people standing up there at that point. And to the right, the very beyond the gray tower is this sort of stair tower that takes you up to the adult stacks, and in between that is the main entry into the community room. That little piece of roof that you can see.
And this will be locked, Dana, from the
Mhm.
outside during the day.
Yep, and people will check out a key to use those spaces the same way we do now with the community meeting room.
And there's been a lot of attention paid to nighttime access to all the facilities and functionality, while not allowing folks to sort of be able to access the entirety of the library.
And the material palette you're
Yeah.
seeing there is the same terracotta skin, but it's meant to be this tone, which is very similar to the brick of this building. So there's meant to have this sort of respectful relationship of a very similar material, but in a more kind of contemporary way, if you will. And then the other material to the left of that is some more of this wood at the very entry. And then at the top left, there is a stair tower that we have there, which will go back to this other color. So,
Michael, could you talk a little bit about terracotta as opposed to other materials? I don't think we're accustomed to thinking about terracotta in Vermont.
Yeah.
Why this instead of some other
well, it's,
exterior material?
it's a new, relatively new European, cladding system. And it has that 100-year, lifespan, just like brick. It's used, it's a very similar, process, of making brick, but in this new, format. And it's hung on the building with these, grooves. There's a metal, well, it's actually here. This is the system where you hang this, off of the building, this metal track. And it essentially acts as a rain screen, so some water, if there's any water that comes into the building between these things, actually flows down and flows out at the very bottom without penetrating the building.
Which is of course what happened with our 1977 edition, and that's why the slabs were peeling off, so.
Yeah,
We've recently learned rain screen, very good,
yeah,
very
really,
important.
really good, weather resistant.
Is that considered a tile?
This
You
is,
call that a tile?
yeah, it's a ceramic tile.
Michael, could you also perhaps speak to the scale of that as it relates to the existing building?
Yeah, this is a much larger scale, but the format that we're using is actually, this dimension vertically, but it's 4 feet long. So each panel is 4 feet by 1 foot, and they're stacked vertically. And then where you see the sort of darker, image in the same color, the panel is gonna change to this texture. So we have the same color
Where?
where all the dark is. That's
Oh,
Instead
that
of
was
being an
wood.
orange and a brown.
No,
it's all
wood
gonna be
is to the
same
left.
color?
What is to the left here? This area, excuse me, and then up above here, but all the dark area has this particular texture, which is essentially, it's the same material, it'll be in the same color, but the scale changes and the texture changes, so it's a way to kind of break up the scale of the facade and articulate the windows and grouping, them together.
So this picture isn't really indicative of what you're planning.
It's
Because of the coloration is very different there.
well, right, this is the wrong sample, it's meant to be in this color.
Right, but in the picture, it's not.
Ross is saying, I think Ross, you're saying this is darker?
Yeah,
Much darker.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have the contrast considerable, and here the terracotta is modeled, it's dark and light.
Yeah.
Whereas that is just one solid color. It just, it feels like it's gonna be expansive.
This one you're talking about, this one,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's why.
That picture is a lot more appealing just because of the variations and the color and dark and light color.
If we could see the real picture, it would help us, because the way you're describing, it doesn't sound as good as the picture.
Okay, all right, yeah,
The picture looks a lot better than those.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be one of these things that. We'll have a building mock-up on the site when we're about to look at the skin. And we're gonna be able to see this outside, but this, by having the striations, the sun is gonna hit this differently. And provide shadow, and it's gonna look quite a bit different from the flat surface, so that's the intention.
Yeah.
It's the way the light will hit this.
It's pretty, just real quick, Fred, that, Ross, to your point, it's really, really difficult for the architects to get a really accurate representation. I say it relative to like, even when it's dead on the computer, when it's presented on a different format, even if we took this and printed a hard copy, it would look a little bit different. So it's always this combination of getting it close to what the concept and the intent, the design intent is, and then backing it up with, okay, this is the material we're really thinking of, and so on. And it's not easy, even the computer generated stuff has come a long way, but there's still more to it that, left to the imagination.
So you can't get that textured one in a darker color?
We can't,
darker, more wood color.
we can't, but right
It
now,
would be
the
closer
thoughts,
to that.
yeah,
And Victoria, that is something that we can easily study, like.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at these color samples, the overall timeline, which we'll hit later, but is to ultimately be putting this out, to bid to local and regional subcontractors in, February. With the goal of starting construction, demolition in particular, and some site work in March. And so there is still time, we'll be looking at continued refinements to that palette and so on. And it's taken quite a
yeah,
significant effort to get, to where we are tonight.
right.
Well, I'll put in a vote for having it the same color,
Mhm.
but I like the different textures.
Right,
So I would go against something like that. And more, having it more one color, the lower and the top.
yeah, that's the
Having it
intention,
one color.
right, that's the intention now.
Now, I see three different colors on the top in the center, a yellow, a brown, and an orange.
Yeah, again, the computer rendering is not doing this justice.
So is that yellow?
The yellow is meant to be the wood tone, a wood cladding, which would be more, more like this, lighter. And the actual orientation of the wood, it's gonna be a 1x6, that'll be the scale. The orientation is gonna be vertical rather than horizontal. So these big panels are horizontal 1x4s, and this would be 1 foot by 4 foot. These will be vertical 6 inches wide. And that's what that is. And then this other color, I think you're referring to this piece here. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks like the three colors are,
Yeah, that's meant to all be terracotta, but in the same,
but like the lower.
yeah,
Right.
the computer, you put stuff in and you don't know what's gonna come out of it.
But you had a question a minute ago, you good?
So you said these were new materials from Europe. Only thing about new things is you never know how they weather and how they handle urban dirt and dust, particularly the horizontal groove things,
Yeah,
you know.
Well-
Any experience or are there places that have this material that you feel confident will?
yeah, there's a building in Montpelier at the, I think it's 133 State Street that has this system on the back of it. And they've been very happy with it, and it's worked really well. In Europe, this is, it's actually been used for a number of years, it's just new to this country, but it's.
Yeah, like decades in
Yeah,
Europe.
it's been used for many, many years there.
But there are quite a few examples of these in, this system in Boston.
Yeah.
A lot of the urban areas.
Okay, so you feel confident,
Yes, yeah, we do, yeah,
problematic,
yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Are there any similar materials that would be sourced in the States?
We haven't found anything, really.
We have, right, and we do have 3 different manufacturers that we're looking at, to give us proposals. To get our best pricing and all that, so we do have 3 systems, but, as Michael said, none are sourced from here.
So I think what I was hearing from Ross and maybe from Victoria is that in looking at the image here at the upper part above the children's room, which is gonna be this large terracotta,
Mhm.
that we like the modeled look,
Breaks
and
it
I
up.
think the concern is that if it's all 4-foot pieces of that, then it's gonna be a bit masked. And so I think perhaps if I read Ross's mind, the question might be, is there a way to break it up so it's not so uniform? Or is that, maybe that's
Well, I mean,
it's just a question.
yeah, that's the intention with.
Well,
with
the part
introducing-
below, right? Yeah.
With introducing this into
Yeah.
this palette.
Okay.
So that terracotta doesn't come in any other color, it's just the terracotta, that's the only
Well,
option.
No,
It does. It's like,
this is the same material in a different color.
Right, but it's not the terracotta type. that comes-
Well, you're right, it's
so
not
we're talking about
terracotta.
terracotta material versus terracotta color.
Yeah,
right?
these are both, I guess, I should say ceramic
Color.
tile. The color is terracotta here. Sorry for being confusing there.
I'm gonna suggest we keep going on some images, although we will jump into a few interiors and these we'll just sort of run through these pretty quickly and then come back around on the exteriors. But it ultimately, as Michael was mentioning, floors, you're gonna essentially look up, from the first floor, the main level, and look up to see the second level being all wood. That's the finish that you're gonna see in most of the spaces. We're still working through some of the finishes, but the elevator shaft is also going to be CLT, which is really exciting. So it's like a wood shaft, elevator comes in, and so that will be not only the structure, but it's also the finish, which is really kind of fun.
So, I'm sorry, Chris, this block is both the ceiling of the first floor and the floor of the second floor.
Yes, it's monolithic.
What about wiring?
That's, yeah, there's a lot of coordination to do there.
They can probably do it.
Yeah.
How much room is between the floor of the second floor and the
Or is
ceiling?
it the
of the first
is it a single piece or is
It's a
it?
single, so.
Yeah,
Put that sideways, Michael, and that's essentially your.
That's it?
Your floor, yeah, and then on top of that, goes an acoustical mat and essentially a topping slab. Then you put your finish on top of that for the second floor.
Which is most likely gonna be carpeted stacks.
Yeah, on
in
the
terms of
second
acoustic.
floor, so yes, Joe, there's a lot of coordination that is very different than, doing a building like this. And I think as you'll see, maybe, Dana, going to the next image. We have a steel structure. You'll see exposed columns and beams, and we will have our work cut out for us in coordinating the sprinkler pipes. Most of the wiring and so on will be in the walls for the vast majority. We will have quite a few spaces that still have acoustic ceilings, lowered acoustic ceilings like you see in these spaces. And most of those are sort of support spaces, restrooms, things like that. But the majority of the lighting will be hung directly from the CLT.
The mechanicals.
The mechanicals.
All the exposed ductwork.
so we're looking at like piping with wires in it.
Yes, conduit, yeah,
Conduit.
yeah.
Which allows you then at some point, if you wanted to move the lights. To move the conduit.
It's exposed. I mean, is that your point, David, that?
You could do both.
My point is that these things do change.
But
Yeah,
Over
sure,
time,
right.
and 10 years from now.
Yeah.
You may not want the lamp hanging here, you may want it 4 feet over.
Right.
And it's a matter of moving that conduit.
Yeah,
So the conduits
more or
are
less, I think.
exposed, they're mounted on the
Right,
wood,
right,
the
yeah.
wood ceiling?
Yeah, some of them,
Yeah.
Victoria, yeah.
Well, and Dana, if you go back one slide there, as is sort of the air handling system.
Yeah, the ductwork,
That is also exposed.
yes.
So that, it's similar to if you've been into, repurposed mills or these old buildings that are now converted to. Different spaces, you'll have all of that exposed, mechanical because you're actually trying to reveal the structure and the warmth of the wood and all that, which adds character to the space.
And please come to our benefit break at American Flatbread on Wednesday night for a very good example of what this looks like.
So the co-op food place has
Yeah.
all those exposed pipes.
Mhm.
And so forth.
Is it seen as being conducive to flexibility in the future to have it surface mounted? The conduit and that sort of
I
thing?
mean, it's very accessible, yeah.
Yeah,
You can get to everything without having to go through ceilings and all that.
Yeah.
It's right there, so it's easily modified.
I think we can keep going and, these are just the images for the most part, again, if you participated in other, of our past presentations, they're fairly similar.
Yeah,
And then this
that
last
views
one.
on that particular one is on the second floor, it's going to be adult gathering space.
I would just point out that these guys have been doing a ton of work to get the cost of the project back down to our target. And one of the things that has gone, as you may recall, that these beams in our not beams, support columns in our original plan were also mass timber in kind of a nice warm wood, and we've lost that and saved money.
Unless somebody wants to write $1 million check.
Yeah.
We could probably do that.
Thank you. I hope that made it onto the recording.
And it will be reflected in the minutes.
In terms of maintenance, is carpet better than a sealed wood floor?
So on the first floor, it's gonna be polished concrete.
Right.
So people traipsing in with salty, snowy boots in the winter will be on a sealed surface, which will be easy to clean. And then upstairs carpet, I think, will be pretty easy to maintain because it should be carpet tiles, right? That's,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the children's library
Yeah.
downstairs. So the main corridor is the concrete where it takes the most wear. But when you go into the other spaces, there'll be carpet for acoustic reasons. Yes.
So if I recall correctly, in previous versions, there was more overhangs over the windows to shade the
That's right.
summer sun.
That's right.
And my concern is with all the windows facing east, south, and west, there's gonna be a lot of sun. We unfortunately can expect our summers to get a lot hotter with many more 80, 90, 100-degree days. I'm a little worried you're being penny wise and pound foolish because by saving money by cutting those overhangs, we're gonna be spending a lot more money trying to cool that in the summers for the life of this building, which is gonna be a lot more money than the cost of the overhangs.
Right.
Isn't there some other thing you could cut other than overhangs that doesn't save us money? See, if you're gonna cut things, don't cut things that's gonna cost more money in the
Right.
long run.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah, actually, Ross, we didn't cut, these were contemplated from the original design, these
Yeah.
deep overhangs that
Yeah.
you see here. And so,
Well, I noticed on the backside, the second floor, there's nothing blocking the sun coming in through the windows in the front, except for the top, there's nothing blocking all those windows.
yeah, yeah.
There's a
that's-
lot of
that's-
sunshine that's gonna be coming in, and overhangs would help a lot. It's a really, easy way to cut down on energy use.
Yeah.
And improve the comfortableness
Mhm.
of the environment during those hot summer days.
Yeah.
And how about the heating cost of all the windows in the front and back and in the winter?
Well, actually, so Victoria, we are required to meet the current energy code, commercial building energy code, and by virtue of that, we cannot exceed a certain percentage of maximum glazing. That was the same case was true here for this building. Those numbers have actually become a little more stringent. I think we're 30% overall, solid wall versus windows. So that's a maximum that we need to calculate for the whole building. So that is figured into make sure that we're meeting that code.
You mean 70% of the walls will be solid and 30% will
Can be
be windows?
maximum.
In
Can be.
in the entire building?
Yeah. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, we're currently going through the permitting process and wrapping up. Drawings between, I say wrapping up, there's still a long stretch ahead between now and. The end of January, it's really when we'll be wrapping up what are called construction documents and specifications, allowing us to take that information and go out to bid. Solicit bids from all the local and regional subcontractors to help participate in the building of the project. And then in February, Dana moves out of the library, allowing us to start the construction in early March. And then we're looking to wrap up somewhere in June, July of 2026.
And that is the formal portion of the presentation, so we can keep chatting and ask questions and look at the materials. The bathtub is on the plans, it will be there, yeah,
In the children's area.
in the
right?
children's area, yeah.
Michael, I wonder, actually, Dana,
You want me to scroll
going
back?
back just to the exterior, we're very excited over here, very excited that, that the space, the programming space that, again, Dana has mentioned is really critically important to being functional and usable throughout the year. So we have a palette there of the, essentially the floor surface of that outdoor space. Which will be these. Call it almost like a stone tile that's sitting on a tray system. It's elevated so that the water goes through it. that water is then collected through internal drains, brought and collected, through and then out into the, storm system. So just wanted to point that one out as well.
Chris, could you talk a little bit about how this outdoor space has changed a bit since we first started?
Yeah, well,
Well, I would say, it has, the usable space has increased. So I guess the footprint or the square foot of the terrace has not changed, but we have kind of increased the amount of usable space and decreased the amount of, green garden. Both for library functionality and also as a result of, cost.
yeah, in particular, what Dana's referring to is sort of in the back corner over here of so it's sort of a triangular space,
Actually,
Yeah.
maybe if we go back to there's that,
the overview,
oh,
just thinking about it.
Yeah, the overview had a triangle.
Yeah, exactly, right, that triangle of space, as Dana said, there can be times when
Yeah,
the
here we
tray
go.
system isn't the easiest to maintain, they can be sedums and things like that, and they can be a little bit finicky, you know, in order to really have them thriving. And so in speaking with Dana and her stakeholders, maximize the flexibility, the functionality, and allowing the garden club or whomever will be caring for the plants to allow that flexibility. So we're talking about planters that can be, and maybe they're, I think we were talking about having annuals that would have like, you know, vines and things that would sort of hang over that parapet edge, that we've been showing on the drawings all along. That sort of nice feeling of having some greenery from that you're down on the pedestrian oval looking up and seeing some of that.
But are we not now thinking essentially about sort of movable planters?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're not talking about a roof garden with embedded.
No,
No.
exactly.
Okay,
Right, cost and the sort of practical aspect of maintaining it, and even in that sort of 100-year scenario. It's where, from a detailing standpoint, you can really start to get yourself down a rabbit hole quickly.
and should some generous donors step forward with exciting ideas for greenery up there, we
we can always add more greenery down the road, yeah.
Yeah,
And so my understanding is no parking spaces will be lost, correct?
between the upper and the lower parking lot, that's right, we
So-
did some, yeah.
And looking in the lower left-hand corner here, I don't see 3 trees and that pathway
Yeah,
fitting in where the current building has its heat pump.
yes,
How does that work?
yeah, that's a great observation, Russ. In fact, what is happening here is we're taking the parking and skewing it out, right? And so the current sidewalk, Russ, runs like through here,
Okay,
okay? The heat pump, the exterior, mechanical is right behind here.
okay, so.
We're not touching it. We're gaining space in this triangle here by this swinging out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think you'll see it, you know, you can really see it on that site plan, or if we wanted to go back
That's
into the plan right here. Russ, is where you would see
I see.
equipment's here, and where this dotted line is where the existing parking is, so it really is quite a swing here, and it really, I think the design concept that Michael and the team came up with is really brilliant in terms of making that primary entrance on this diagonal that you're really gonna see from Cross Street Bridge. It's gonna have a lot of attention, which in a public building, you want that. There's the entry, you know, especially since we're thinking that this is gonna be kind of the main entry from the southeast side.
And the current side entrance between the municipal building and the library, that's gonna be closed off, what's gonna be next?
No, it acts just the way it is now.
Oh,
Yep, the town
Or
office.
you mean to
would
the
be-
library?
for the library,
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
that will
Yeah.
be,
right across from.
Sorry.
that door will be there, but it'll be an emergency egress only, you won't be able to go in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that is also a great benefit to this is that the space between the two buildings is actually gonna be enhanced or enlarged because the 1977 addition sort of closes down that space, and then you have the somewhat awkward, entry canopy that projects out even further currently. And so you'll really have a much wider boulevard, if you will, connecting Main Street to points east.
The section on the right-hand side of grass, green, behind the Main Street building. Yeah, does that need to be mowed? Is that flat?
That's actually not our property.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is,
To the bottom left, that's the neighbor's property.
right,
Oh,
Well, that's neighbors. Oh,
yeah,
Yeah,
okay, so
That's-
it's built right up to the property line.
yes,
Yeah.
correct.
As close as you can.
That's right, David, yeah. And we are allowed essentially a 0 setback, so we are engaged, our new building is essentially engaged with the theater
Wow.
wall.
Wow.
Are there any?
Are the
Just out of
interior
curiosity,
plans,
has this been shared with those,
Yes.
buddy, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Chris has been really proactive about reaching out to both of our neighbors. 78 and Maine and the theater, and they've been really responsive and great.
That's good.
have the designs for the interior advanced to the same point as the exterior?
yes, yeah, they have. Yeah. We're modeling just like the exterior renderings, we're modeling, well, you saw some of the interior, we're looking at that same thing.
Will there be a similar public program to review the interior, or is that? not
I
enough?
think that was
Or-
pretty much the schematic design presentation we did.
Okay.
The changes, there have been changes since then,
but they're minor.
but I don't know that, other than to me and the other librarians, I don't know that they're that
Yeah,
germane
yeah.
to the public.
But I think, oh, I'm so sorry, Victoria.
No, the wall that was originally proposed against the 71, 73,
Mm-hmm.
the stone wall, yeah, have you gotten rid of that?
No, that's still in there, I mean,
It
a
just- it
screen
makes-
wall.
It makes their entrance into their building a dark,
No, that's gone, she's referring to the big screen wall, I believe, it's now a wood green wall.
Yeah,
Is that
I
what
mean,
you're
we're
talking
still, so Victoria, we're
It's
still
probably
screening.
Green,
Yeah.
ivy growing on it, I think
Yeah.
you're speaking of.
Oh,
so
yeah.
there's still light will go in there.
They're right here, okay.
Yeah, it's meant to be a
That
slat,
looks-
slat, so there's
There-
gaps
Yeah.
between the wood.
in there either, Victoria.
Yeah,
Well,
it
that's
wasn't
pretty-
seen as undesirable
That's-
from
No,
the property
It
owner.
makes a dark
Yeah.
black hole for the people that use it.
Yeah, and yeah, again.
It's the entrance into their building.
Yeah, to their-
Back.
Yeah. To Dane's point, though, we've been running these images by them and,
There
they-
hasn't been pushback
yeah,
on that.
Okay. Well, better than the stone wall.
Regarding the terracotta, I've never been associated with a property that had ceramics on the outside. How does it handle, how are the ones that are already built in Vermont, how are they doing with it?
Freezing.
Yeah, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a German product, so. they use
Sure, they
German
know
products,
it.
you know.
Yeah, and they don't have problems if a naughty person came and hit it with something and it was 20 below and it shatters? It doesn't do that?
Well, I don't know of that happening, but if it does, the great thing about the system is you can take one panel out really easily. You know, you don't have to, it's not like it's a brick wall or something, these things will come out, you can replace them.
Snap them in, snap them
Yeah,
out.
exactly, yeah.
Power wash? How do you clean that?
I suppose you could, I don't know. though.
yeah, you should.
When do you clean it?
Yeah, when you clean it, yeah,
I
right.
mean, you never see a building in a city, clean
Right.
buildings.
That's a, right,
It's part of the patina.
right. It's like, when was the last time this building was washed?
Yeah, wash.
We would expect, Barbara, that this would not, it's not a building that we would expect to be washed.
So that it repels water.
Yeah.
And it would take I think it would take a pretty hefty naughty person to smash that. Probably possible.
graffiti.
Yeah, graffiti for sure, just like this brick, there's a porosity that I'd be curious, I don't know the material data on porosity of this tile versus the brick. Even brick, there's a very, very wide range of porosity, but.
Could you guys just talk for a minute about the interior look? Obviously, you know, as we can see in some of the interiors, we're actually looking at the exterior of the old library, and then we have some glass and so on. But what are I'm sort of actually looking, Dana, sort of for an interior wall. Is it
Any paint color you
Like-
want.
Well, so here's,
yes, so,
the
I mean-
CLT is on this wall. And then, a lot of it will be drywall and paint upstairs, right?
Yep, and in fact,
Yeah, here.
yeah, there are
Yeah.
some accent areas, as Dana just mentioned, the only, I'll say it a little bit different. The CLT, we've got, you know, you're looking up, seeing the ceiling, and then you see the elevator shaft, that's in that CLT. And then we have some, kind of, accent walls that are with this same Douglas fir, this warm red is what's specified. And
that we're seeing in this room that we're in
Yes.
currently?
This is Douglas fir, so we're using the same species of wood. And taking a piece of wood that's about this width, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Turning it on its side, and you'll gap each one and have like a black felt behind it. To create some acoustical properties, but also to have like a nice warm wood tone.
So that happens here and there.
It's here and there.
Yeah, primarily along the hallway at the main entrance where the children's library is to the right. That whole wall will have that, and then a little bit at the main entrance. So it's meant to be kind of contrast to the marble exterior wall of that building, the concrete, and then it provides acoustical property too. Yes.
I was just wondering, right now, you know, the library has some space to display art, community art. Will there be spaces for that?
Yeah, so the library lobby where we display them now, that we'll still be able to hang art there. And then we're also gonna, let me see, I think we did include, yeah. Oh, this is so tiny. This is a really long, wide corridor. Does my mouse show up?
Yes.
Like, I've been doing this all night. I hope that the mouse has been showing up. This is gonna be like a community gallery where we'll have picture rails and people will be able to, local artists will be able to display their work there.
So what we're looking at there is sort of the corridor that goes from the rear nighttime entrance of the
Yeah.
community meeting room down sort of to the main room and the community meeting room and the activity room and the small conference room.
And then there's also another image that we have at the Main Street entrance, interior with
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Uh,
there.
yeah, see on that wall to the right, yeah, that's meant to be an art wall.
Which is really nice, because you'll see that from Main Street.
Yeah,
Art wall, you mean like the college has out at the athletic thing of electronic? Or
it's just meant,
paper and, you know.
yeah, right now it's just meant to display local artists there with lighting that would actually come down and specifically hit that wall, sort of gallery wall, if you will.
Okay.
But I think we have that flexibility going forward, how we wanna program
Yeah.
that space.
Didn't we have the library of things there?
We do.
Yeah, and we might still
Yeah.
do that.
Now, I understand that some investigations were done in the back of the library, to the geothermal thing. Are you able to talk about that at all? How is that gonna relate to the heating and cooling of the building?
Chris, do you?
It's gonna relate, David, wonderfully, because we have. This first well that we did, that you just saw, is considered a test well. To understand the flow of water that we receive, which is about 165 gallons per minute, which is right in the target of what our mechanical engineers wanted, needed to have to support a fully electric geothermal system. So we're really excited. No fossil fuel use in the building. So again, very excited about that.
Yeah.
Now, what will happen next is the engineer takes that flow information, finalizes the sizing of his equipment. And then likely at this point, given oncoming winter, hopefully oncoming winter real soon, is in the spring, we'll dig the other three, we think it's probably gonna be 3 more wells. 2 more, well, 1 more production, so you have 2 production incoming, and then 2 where you get the water back in the ground. So it's an open loop geothermal system. So yeah, we're excited. This will be ultimately, it's the most efficient and economical system that we could provide for long-term operating costs. And we don't have that operating cost information. We will get that once we take the design a little further.
Are those all buried underground or where are the
Yeah.
wells?
They're buried underground, they're vertical.
So they'd be under the road, under the ramp?
There are the 4 wells, Victoria, that go straight down into the earth through the bedrock, approximately 587 feet.
Right, but they'd be under the, what is now the ramp?
And then they come up, and then we connect all 4 of those. And then we come up the ramp, just as you're saying, underground, below the frost line, and then into the building.
And Chris, is there any financial benefit that we might get from the federal government for this?
Yes, Joe, there is.
Oh.
Funny you should ask that. It's gonna be about $600,000 that we're counting on as a financial benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act. Should that legislation keep going, we've done a number of projects through the Inflation Reduction Act. It's frankly the reason why it has made that a very economical system, because it's always typically more expensive than a fossil fuel based code compliant mechanical system, but we get that benefit.
Is there a deadline? But for the Inflation Reduction Act, in other words, does it have to be
No,
complete by a certain time?
no, there's no current deadline, Joe.
Not that
You know what I'm saying.
administration.
Russ, sorry.
I don't see, there's no basement. So what's can you talk about the foundation? What's under the floor?
Sure.
What's holding everything?
The floor, like this one, is right on the ground. It's a slab on grade. And then you have a frost wall going down around the perimeter, called frost wall. It's down below, the footing is down below the frost level, about 5 feet. And we are going to be utilizing the existing lower level, called the basement level, currently the children's level, for our friends of the library, our mechanicals, electrical, and general storage.
So that's
All
gonna
under,
be used the way it is. I thought it was leaking and it wasn't working. You're ripping it all out, redoing it, or how's?
we're taking all the finishes out, all the finished space is coming out of there. Now, yes, there is some leaking. We will be taking care of that. Most of that leaking is when you think about where the water is coming from, it's coming off the roof and then going right down next to the basement. But when we build out, there's no way for the water to come down and then circumvent that and come around.
Is there gonna be any insulation between the cement and the ground? Or is the heat
Yes, there's insulation.
underneath the whole floor?
Yeah.
Touching the ground?
Yeah, are we doing, I'd have to check the detail, whether we included all the way, I think we did.
We did.
Yeah.
Good, because that will help
Yeah.
prevent heat loss.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Is there any potential that these drills, what do you call them? Geothermals, could be used by town officers, or could, whatever comes out, I don't know anything about this, obviously. It could be used for other buildings on the block, or the town offices in particular?
So Barbara, it's a great question that we don't yet have the answer to. We did get, as I say, really good, valuable, the flow is perfect. The question that the engineers will have to do now is, what is our need for the library. How much of that 165 gallons per minute, do we need 100 gallons per minute? Therefore, there's this excess. And you also want some redundancy, so, you know, you just have to. We're leaving it to the engineers for now to allow them to get through their piece, and then we can see where it might go from there. David?
Now, for a number of years, there's been talk about developing the lower parking lot with some kind of
Yes.
building.
Yeah,
Will these geothermal things impede that, or?
no,
They would not be in the way of a possible construction down there?
right,
Okay.
we have worked with the engineers. Who've had past experience like this, and essentially, what we're doing is collecting these and creating a manhole, if you will. We're collecting these together and we can push that down so that the next building can be built in and around it and above it and so on. So certainly, we'll have to coordinate, you know, where the foundations and footings are, obviously, but we can work around that. That's the intent.
As always, go ahead, Barbara.
I just have one party comment. I gotta say kudos to all of you for dropping the 100-year lifespan of this new building. I appreciate that you're paying attention to beyond your lifetime and what it's gonna look like. I'm out with my power washer cleaning it, you know, because I want it to last
Right.
for a long, long time. And I do appreciate that you've paid so much attention to that.
All right, well, please do email me after all of this marinates and you think about it. If you have additional feedback or comments, just shoot me an email or stop by my office and I synthesize everything and pass it on to these guys. So if additional thoughts come to you, just let me know.
And Dana, these materials are also at your office or?
They're at my office, yeah. They're not out on display
Yeah.
because we just don't have room for them, but
But if anyone-
they'll be in the front office of the library if you want to
If
come and
anyone
take.
was unable to
Yeah.
come and was interested, they could come by and take a look, and we can now come.
Yes, and I invite everyone to come up and take a look and touch. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
There's one thing.